All right, if you've been with us for our three-part series with Summer Deaver, this is episode 2 of the three-part series. This is all about the future of business and the new reality, what work after the pandemic situation really looks like, and where work, career, that concept, even that identity is going. We're going to invite you to explore, get curious, and really have a sense of purpose for what you're doing, the impact that we make in the world. We're going to be talking a lot in this episode about creating our own reality and what it really means to connect with others. So sit back, put your earbuds in, and enjoy.
Yeah. So where do you think like business and the world is going here? Like post, I don't even know if we can say post-pandemic yet.
Post-apocalypse.
Are we at the beginning of the end of the pandemic? Now everyone's got the Omicron.
Oh, Jesus Christ. I
mean, half of New Jersey has it currently. So
right. And I'm not a denier. I just think it's real damn good marketing, real good branding. You know, if we weren't already afraid of being in a pandemic, and if we weren't already afraid of like the coronavirus, it's like then we went to Delta. Delta sounds serious. It sounds very serious. And it became like the Transformer, the Omicron. And again, I make jest, but I completely believe that we are in a pandemic and there is contagion and there are people suffering and dying and life is changing. And God, in so many ways, like I'm a person who's embraced evolution and change and like, let's see what happens next. And like, fuck, if I'm scared, let's go with curiosity, right? Like, you know, let's put our seatbelt on and go with curiosity.
Let's just go with
it. So the part of me at the table, the little kid part of me at the table, just sees so much of this shit as so unfair that it's just like, part of me feels like I haven't gotten into the lazy river of actually being in curiosity about it. I've kind of been like, well, that's not fair. And, you know, just even like different industries, like it was perfectly fine for certain bigger businesses to be open and then smaller businesses, you know, got the smackdown and I just felt like throwing a tantrum.
So, yeah, I mean, it's for me, I feel like it's just like this really interesting, like where is this all going? Like Lula said something about wanting to get into healthcare the other day. And I was like, is that even going to be like a viable industry? Like losing so many people. You know, like her dad is a nurse practitioner, neonatal ICU, and like,
right.
You know, there's plenty of times there's just like a lot of people showing up. It's like, is this where AI steps in and becomes like, you know, a warm and hospitable like body that just takes over healthcare? You know, and similarly like with the service industry. Really good friend, owns multiple restaurants, and just seeing that like struggle is like, is this where
that's one of my biggest tantrums?
Is this like where AI like comes into play in a few years? I mean, it exists, you know, like
right.
Like that. I saw, you know, an AI waking up where they had taken living cells to, you know, and then like they wake up and they have these
stronger
like,
than coffee for this conversation.
Have these like, you know, very lifelike. And I mean, when we talk about trauma, it's like right now, you know, what we're doing is like in the hospitality industry, it's like we're creating like a social emotional learning, like sort of brave space, like safe space, like trauma informed kind of training that allows anyone who's working in hospitality to have this kind of awareness. But like if you can just put an AI in there who has human like emotions but like doesn't take it personally, like I mean, is that where things are going in a few years? You know, it's an interesting kind of concept. I mean, like, do you want AI flying your plane and bringing you like a drink on an airplane and serving you in a restaurant? And you know, and then so, you know, then the bigger question comes up is like, well, what are people going to do for a job? you know,
Right.
that's why we need universal basic
And
income. So everyone can just play video
healthcare and
games. Yeah. I mean,
well,
like what purpose then does the human population serve? You know, if we're not here to work, which is then like comes back to your question, like, well, I've always believed in like living this really full life and curiosity and saying yes to all the things, and you know.
it's so interesting because I do want to, I desire to jump on board with curiosity and have conversations like this. And I'm glad that I'm having this conversation with you, who I see as having like an equally curious mind, so that I can be vulnerable and saying, well, fuck, I don't know, right? And at the same time, and maybe it's age, maybe it's experience, I'm not sure what the cocktail is here, but like we grew up that the Jetsons were a fantasy, right? And like, while it would be cool to have like, you know, cars that fly all over the place, and it would be like really cool to have a robot that would like magically make like a sandwich like appear, like, and the gadgets that George Jetson had. My narrative that still is operating right now is that was make believe. And so many of those things have come alive. Like, we have cars that can drive themselves. We have lots of, you know, AI that does many human functions. And I guess I'm trying to reconcile that it's not make believe, it's a possibility. So like curiosity, activate. Because I worry about the people.
Yeah.
It is scary. It's straight up scary to me. AI or no AI, when people don't have purpose.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because
That's important.
There's this new like TV show I just started watching a few days ago called Upload, and it's like the makers of like The Office and Parks and Recreation. So initially I was like, oh, it's gonna be great, you know?
Right.
But it's trippy. Like, it's about, you know, you die and you get uploaded into these different heavens that you're actually like paying for, and it's similar like consumerism. You have to like, someone has to be managing your account, but a real life human who is creating avatars. Her father is sick and she really would love him to upload, but he still believes in like an afterlife, like this human kind of afterlife, and his wife passed away, so he's committed to going to see her. But he goes to visit this heaven upload place, like a tour. You would tour your nursing home facility.
You tour your upload.
And he says something about like, oh, you can tell like that this AI, who's like the bellhop person, doesn't have a soul. You know? So when we talk about AI, I'm always curious, like, I mean, the more that they look like us, the more that they have human expressions, like, will we be able to tell that they have a soul? You know? And if like, I mean, so AI has consciousness, right? Because it can make decisions, that has a thought process that's been programmed. But what like differentiates us from AI, and I think that is like this human body, like according to yoga, Buddhism has the potential to become exponentially awake and aware in ways. And so maybe our purpose has always been spiritual. Maybe our purpose as humans has always been to evolve to this like complete enlightened state. And like, if AI like really serves all of our needs in the world, you know, yeah, you get a choice. You can sort of like live in a VR, you know, put on goggles and like have your entire utopian experience, or maybe you dedicate time to self-mastery. So we can all go live in some sort of modern yogi cave. I mean, this this is sort of like off the cuff, like present moment ideas.
No, I love
on
it.
But
I love it. I love it. And I love that it's interesting because these thoughts are coming into my mind in a different way. And personally, I'm navigating curiosity and this. I'm going back to my tantrum. Like, I don't like it.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't like it.
Yeah.
So, and I'm like, okay, self, like you're just witnessing that. And I think about John Miguel Ruiz's book, right? The Four Agreements. And essentially, like, we've all been living in our mitote, right? We've all been living in our own dream, and everyone has their own dream. So one might postulate that this is directly in line with the work that I've always done, because I staunchly believe that you get to be whoever you decide to be. Is that not living in your own reality?
Yeah.
So then you add like science and technology to it, and I'm still just trying to keep up with my email, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah. It's interesting because
AI for my email.
yeah, they exist.
Right.
Yeah, Bruce's son the other day said something about, do you know where, he's 9, so this is different. He said, do you know where Asia was like 600 years ago?
Oh.
And I was like, I don't know. And he was like, it was right on top of us. And so he was talking about the Bering Strait, and like how the land masses were connected. But when he said it was right on top of us, I was just like thinking about how, like, we're here and we share some commonality, but you have your reality, your world,
right,
your thought processes, and they're just layered. Like, we're just kind of layered on top of one another.
Right,
like,
right.
Who's to say that this isn't like a virtual reality, basically, that we are uploading into from some other place, and having this experience, and then we just continue like looking for another utopia, and it's just like illusion after illusion after illusion that we're trying to escape through means other than looking within. We're still trying to put the glasses on.
Right. Seek a utopia. It's interesting that you say that, because wouldn't one say that that's the impetus for lots of aspects of evolution?
Yeah.
That. So with Phoebes being 6, and again, she got real upset that I said 2 more minutes as opposed to 2 more hours of playing with Barbie. But she doesn't, the age doesn't have exactly the concept of time. And then I'll say, I'll say, okay, Phoebes, 10 more minutes. She's like, 8 more minutes. I'm like, I don't know. You just argued yourself out of 2 minutes. Well, like, whatever. But it's interesting. So we read different books together. And the one book that I keep going back to is this Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls. And each page is a different story of a woman in history. And it's really been such a space of reflection. And we've read this book 2 or 3 times, 100 people in there. And it's been such a space of reflection for me, because I'll read about like somebody who contributed to like Pythagorean theorem and theory. And I then see like, well, we needed that to get here, to do this next thing, to do the next thing. So we are always on a process of evolution, but what has been the catalyst that's driven that evolution? Has it been just purely necessity? Has it been seeking a utopia? How has it been like, let me do all my things out here because coming here is not comfortable? Or we haven't been taught. I mean, I wasn't taught that for sure. Not at home, not at school. Didn't have it modeled for me for sure.
Yeah, we were walking yesterday, right? And we said that like we don't realize the impact that every single action that we take, every conversation that we have, even every thought that we have is contributing in some way to the story that we're living, we're experiencing. And yeah, and I mean, it's beautiful to think about that interconnectivity as well, like where, yeah, the people that contributed to Pythagorean theorem, like, have, you know, brought into existence like the structure of this table and our, you know, our way of being here in this moment.
Right. Even like it's the small things, you know, because I have to remember she's taking in a lot of information, tabula rasa, taking in a lot of information for the first time. So we're reading something and they were talking about corsets. And this one woman in particular, and I wish I could remember her name, I'll like put it in the show notes, but who her father was a doctor and she wanted to become a doctor at a period of time in which women weren't doctors. And it was talking about how she like denied wearing corsets and she dressed in men's clothes. And there's a picture, a rendition of her. And Phoebes is just like, what about that is men's clothes, right?
I love it.
Right. Which we live in such a different day and time than even you and I grew up in terms of conversations about gender with children. But it just was such a reminder to me of there was a point in which, I mean, not only did we not wear pants, but we couldn't vote, right? And that seems like such a preposterous concept. I mean, even on the drive here, I was talking to my sister about rallying for a vote that's coming up, and like, you know, hey, did you know about this? Or, you know, hey, what are your thoughts on it? And I would never wrap my head around not having a voice or an opportunity to vote. Now, do all of our votes get counted? Who knows? Depends on who you're asking. But just like so much of it has evolved in a way that I want to believe historically has proven, even with its ups and downs, has happened for us.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting to, like, again, it's like, it's a choice. You can, like, I think it's obvious through science nowadays to see that there's like an intelligent force that animates all of life, but then to be able to choose, like Ram Dass says, loving awareness, you know, like, so you get to choose whether you consider that to be that intelligent force that animates life, or that like brings into existence the capacity for your eye to comprehend and see this particular table. You get to choose whether that is loving or whether that is, you know, imbued with goodness. And I don't know, I mean, sometimes if I feel the challenge of positing a like a dynamic, like love or goodness onto things. But then when I do, it's just like, I know I'm choosing that. And life is a little sweeter. It's a little easier to say hello to people I don't know, or extend a hand, or offer support, or make a connection. And like that, you know, that connection is one of my values, like connection and creating community. And like, you know, those things are really important to me. That feels like why I'm here, you know.
Right. And I think you're right. It goes back to like, why are you here? And also of mammals, our particular species, like as a human being, we are the only mammal that asks that question to our knowledge, right? Like, why am I here? What is my purpose? It goes back to our conversation from yesterday. It's like wanting to create impact. And is that impact for self? Is that impact for ego? Is that impact for legacy? Is that impact for community? Is that impact for connection? And I think even that evolves.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I think everything kind of pivots every 3 years.
Like, okay, well, I'm in for it. Give me the 3-year timeline.
I mean, I just think because the world is evolving, you know, so it's like to be in a committed relationship, or to be, you know, to commit yourself to like growing a business, is like you have to think in 2-year time periods. Like, you know, Cameron Harold's vivid vision idea. It's like creating that vivid vision for 3 years down the road. What does that look like? You know, and all my like techie bro friends, so like they're really into that like vivid vision thing.
Right.
You know, like Brett Morgan, and they're like, yeah, you set goals and they like literally start happening before the 3-year comes about. Or, you know, like as we get like more information about a new piece of technology or like a way in which things are becoming, you know, decentralized, whether it's social media or like finance, like there's so many ways we get to incorporate those things into our vivid vision and our plan for stuff. But circling back to, I think when we mentioned Stevie or Chris,
Right.
The book that she has been reading forever is, of course, Think and Grow Rich, but also The Spirit of Opulence. It's like a chapter from the book Hidden Powers.
Oh yeah, I
it's
gotta
Thomas Troward. And I just read right before I came here this morning. It's like he talks about I am, like the power, like the essence and the power of the word I am. And I mean, I've like been diving deep into this for, I don't know, several years. Like, and you know, Wayne Dwyer talks about it, and you know, Deepak Chopra talks about it. It's in like all of these ancient texts, in Sanskrit. It's in the Bible. It's in like I'm not well versed in the other religious texts per se, but like the power of the word I am is how we create our reality. Like what you put after I am comes to be. So if I am lazy, like, yeah, you're going to see yourself that way. I am curious. You're going to have conversations that, you know, ignite your curiosity.
Will shape your ability to even have and engage in that conversation.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember, you know, as I worked to really like shift my mindset around money and wealth and these things, and like kind of take out the stories of like capitalism is evil and destroying the world. Like I still may believe that to some degree, but like it disabled me to participate in having wealth and being able to like, you know, create a sustainable future for myself or my daughter. And I remember one time you were just like, I don't know. Like, I know there's always money there, you know?
Yeah.
And like when we're not focused on things in a lack mentality, you know, they tend to just like exist. So within that statement of you just being like, I know there's like always, you know, money there, it's coming in, it's flowing or whatever. I learned so much because like, without you saying I am, it was just like, I am wealth, I'm abundance, I'm secure, like financially.
Right.
Like those statements like exist in that sort of ease or like attitude, you know? And yeah, so we don't always have to say I am, but though that is the essence, the power. Yeah, having those affirmations.
You're picking them up, putting down because I'm picking up what you're putting down because I'm just thinking like that really makes a case for affirmations.
Yeah,
it makes a huge case for affirmations, and it's funny because that's actually, I love when things are just so aligned, and like at some point, like I said, this episode just for me or this moment in time feels like a pivot point that I still can't name. But again, a part of the book that I'm working on right now talks about the 3 stages of identity. And the first stage being like, am I that, you know, am I a mother or am I a business owner or am I an artist? The second stage, and the space between stage 1 and 2 is a lot shorter than 2 and 3, but the second stage of identity is like, I am an artist. So it's like introduced to, hi, yeah, I'm a coach.
It's like a good question mark.
Right. It's like, because we're not exactly convinced. Whether that's like we don't have enough experiences, we don't have enough evidence, we don't have enough, right? And then the third stage, and I don't even want to say like the walk from stage 2 to stage 3. It's almost like and crossing the Pyrenees from stage 2 to stage 3, all the experiences that we have to have to get to I am period in full conviction, like the skin, the name, the like full embracing of the identity, that it's unwavering. That path was just laden with fuck ups, failures, confusion, doubt, and opportunities to affirm, confirm, and like hold on to and make the commitments, the patterning, the belief system that was actually going to bring us to the I am period. So even as we're having this conversation, maybe in my reflection of where I am and understanding like where I stand at this moment in time in the future of business, is I might be in a stage 2, like in terms of this might be what I believe. I don't know yet because I still need more information, need to have more experiences of how it is unfolding. And even like, what is my part in how it's unfolding? Am I evolving along with it? Do I believe in the pace in which it's happening?
Yeah.
Is my pace different? What values am I taking into this unfolding so that when I arrive, which, Joseph Campbell would postulate, like, we don't always exactly arrive. It's always a circle and the universe journey. But when I arrive to each version of the new normal, which maybe it's on a 3-year cycle, I'm not sure. But when I arrive there, I feel in full conviction of the version of me and what my beliefs are at that moment. Because I'm in full conviction right now of the way it was. Because I have a lot of evidence and experiences that have formulated that reality.
Yeah.
And here we go on a new cycle of developing what is the new normal and the normal to be and the normal that's unfolding. And I can't say for sure that any of us know. And that goes with technology, even relationships.
Yeah.
It's like, who do you want to be as you're experiencing those things?
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe that's the bubble wrap. As we're going, like hurtling ourselves into the future. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, that concept of like never arriving, like I think once I started embracing that, it's like, oh, cool. But then like Bruce will remind me like, hey, but like you do kind of arrive at like a peak and you gotta pause there and you gotta look around and take in the view and be like, wow, look how far I made it. Like I just climbed this huge mountain.
Right.
This is so beautiful. And before I climb that next peak, I need to like sit down and like check my water supply, my snacks, and like, repack my bag. Right. Look at the map. And he's like, Summer, you're always just like, you get to the mountain and you're just like, okay, there's the next one. Go,
Yes, that's what we do.
And so it's like super beautiful to have a partner that's just like, slow down. Like people my whole life have told me to slow down. I'm like, oh, really? You just don't get me. But like to be with somebody that just like really loves me and like is holding that space to just be. So yeah, and it is like it is really because that is part of like Santosha and like Yamas and Niyams, like gratitude, like appreciation, contentment, like to look around and be like, oh, you know what? How many times have I written in my journal, at the end of one year and the beginning of the next, like, I want to live at the beach. I want a really beautiful partner that I can have adventures with. I want to build a camper van. I want to have an art show. I want my daughter to be happy and thriving with like great friends. And to feel loved and accepted. I want to know about crypto. I want to make wise investments. I want, so to be able to pause and say, oh shit, that was 2021. Cool.
That's literally your reality, right?
Yeah,
right. And then at the apex.
Yeah, like I've watched 100 sunrises, the past couple of years. Like my life is really, really beautiful. Like I'm so grateful for these things. And
And you see that man over there? I'm going over there next. All right, Bruce, get your backpack.
wait,
We're gonna.
you packed it for us, right? It's like, that's-
You brought the trumix that I like, right?
you checked out the map, right? 'Cause I have no idea where I'm going.
But I'm going.
But you're coming with me, right? So yeah,
Oh, God.
he's so good at that. Yeah, it's really beautiful to have someone that plans and
Right.
thinks and
Some
foresees some pitfalls.
right. And it's oh my God, this is like 100 episodes because it's like, and what we're talking about also is roots versus wings,
Yeah.
and but not versus. It's roots and wings, and it's like, what are the things that are accomplished when we're settled, like, and what does that feel like? What does nesting or rooting or like being of one environment look like? And also like, what are the opportunities of getting out there, mixing it up, like having multiple places that you live or experience, and like even understanding those different chapters of our life. We're also even talking about the dynamics of polarity, right? The polarity that resides within each of us and the polarity that we need or desire. I mean, we can even have a conversation about like the word need, right? And how loaded that can be, and then also how fucking important it is.
Well, polarity is so significant, right? Because we can't have internal reflection if we don't know the external. There is no, like, so the goal is to get maybe to oneness, unity,
Right.
like non-duality, but we use the dualistic path to get there. Like we know what it's like to only spend time tending the external, and then that leads us to then like look within somewhere else.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's so interesting because then we are also the authors of our own narrative. There's plenty of influences, but like my version of the polarity that resides within me might look different than your definition of polarity.
Totally.
Right. Or how I demonstrate it also from my wounds or my bullshit or my, past story, as well as like my hopes and my dreams and the best version of myself, or even the most complete version of myself. Right. And all of that is what's showing up to each moment, even like when you go to the grocery store and when you make a financial investment decision, or when you say yes or no or choose a book. I mean, like all of those parts, experiences, the dynamics, the good day, bad day, and at least Christ for me, what time of the month it is. I'm like, it
For
all
sure.
goes into so much. Like what stressors we're experiencing, an argument that you had, or something that's completely outside your, like, there's so much that goes into all of it.
Yeah. Have you ever heard the story about Icarus? Like the real story? Like
Well, tell me the real story, because I know some bullshit lie story about Icarus.
I mean, it's funny. Like recently, I keep finding all these like, oh well, here's the whole part.
Here's the real.
So like Icarus's father, said, we hear the story like, don't fly too high.
Yes.
Here's your
yes.
wings. Don't fly too high because they're made of wax and they'll melt. So he falls to the ground, dies.
Right.
But the other part of the thing, the warning that his father gave him was like, and don't fly too low, for like something like the dew will fall and like, dampen your wings or something like that. So it's like, it's that when we're talking about polarity or like that place of balance, like where, we don't fly too high, but we also don't, it's not that we're not flying. It's not that we're, we're not flying too low.
Right.
There's some middle ground, being challenged and like, there's a whole bunch of like, billionaire, like coach, super masculine, like never give up. The only reason I made it is because I've worked every single day of my life, and I, I've like observed, especially like, anyway, I'm not going to drop names.
Sure.
I don't even know them.
I
But
don't send you a Christmas card.
but there's gotta be like some balance, like that feminine aspect of like being intuitive, being able
Right.
to listen. You will know the right thing to send you email. You will know the right day to invite someone to your program. Like if there is that balance of internal and external.
You have a
and not
relationship
feeling
with yourself
unbounded.
too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like
Or
you-
like even like when it comes to AI, when it comes to like embracing certain forms of technology, like if we're holding on just to that resistance, which I was probably one of the last people I know to get a cell phone,
So obsessed with you.
like, I was like holding out on all of that. Now I'm just like, oh, this is like where we're going, like fire was a kind of technology that caused us to evolve.
Sure.
And here we are, like, oh yeah.
But some also like, isn't there a beauty in honoring your own pace, right? Like, there might have been a point in which you weren't quite ready for the cell phone or fire, right? It's just like you weren't. I mean, frankly, like thinking about even Phoebe, and she lives in a modern society, is not ready for fire. Like she's just not, right? But even there, like we have it at our own pace. And to the point in which we were making before, like sometimes we do need to challenge ourselves and push a little bit outside of our comfort zone. So again, I guess it goes to that relationship that you have with yourself. Because I can also say, like, at least for me, and it even goes back to like my soccer days, but like when I would have a coach that would be like, move your ass, Fruman, or hustle, or go faster, or why didn't you get the ball? I was just like, I cannot hear you. Like whatever your face is saying to me, I don't know about it. But if it was like, great way to kick the ball, or great hustle out there, or I love that how you guys played together. You would have me in the palm of your hand each and every time, and I think like, okay, but doesn't that always doesn't also pertain to my relationship with myself, right? Because when I am feeling safe or seen or heard, even by myself, you can get a more adaptable, responsive version of myself. So like when it comes to challenging or pushing myself outside my comfort zone, if we're, talking nicely to ourselves, I'm talking nicely to like all the people at my table, I can stretch that little bit further.
Yeah.
Or try something that would,
Yeah.
But if I'm in resistance or speaking harshly to myself, which makes me think about the Dr. Emoto studies, right? That you're not getting much out of me.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, so Dr. Emoto took like those crystals of like froze little bits of water that had been spoken to, like, I am, with that essence of like, I am healthy, or, I love you, or the one that was like the worst. So like those molecules like became these beautiful structures, these like sacred geometry shapes. And then like the ones that were ignored were the ones that were the worst. They were just like sludgy, So then it's interesting because, what are the ignored parts of ourselves that we, and that's like a really interesting thing. I think that relationships bring up for us. Like it's so easy for me to be a good and loving and kind person when I'm not in an intimate relationship with someone. But then
when I don't have anyone else to navigate, I'm awesome.
I'm like so enlightened, but then like it put me in an intimate relationship. Oh, the parts that I can easily ignore start having a place to be seen and heard. They're not so enlightened. They're not so beautiful.
Right. gosh, there is so much truth to that, because I'm sure that you've been in and I've been in relationships in which it was like almost the resume version of myself and the resume version of you are both in this relationship. And the depth and patina, if you will, of me and the depth and patina of you were not in that relationship, whether it was because you didn't feel safe or there wasn't you just didn't have enough self-awareness to share parts of yourself or accept parts of another person or accept parts of yourself, and like just play out that dynamic that we just tucked away different aspects of ourselves. And I do find that the relationships that are most fulfilling to me are the ones that are authentic. And it is like, it's all the parts of you and all the parts of me. And the challenge isn't, at least for me, the challenge isn't like any bit of your mess. Like, bring it on. I love all your mess. I'll embrace it fully. Talk about it till we're blue in the face. The challenge for me is allowing you, like anybody I'm in a relationship with, to see my messy parts.
Yeah.
Fuck, that's so hard for me.
It really is. It's really, really hard. Yeah, I might not have ever been like the resume version of myself in a relationship, but I definitely got really good at spiritual bypassing. You know, I was really good at just like, oh, I'll just meditate this away. I can go sit for a few hours,
right,
feel better, you know, and then like, trying to be, which I guess could be a resume version of a yoga teacher.
Depends on what your resume is.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely, you know, and there's like a rawness to that. It's like, actually, it's not more deep inner work that I need to do. It's like, yeah, letting someone see that I'm not perfect or not good or kind or.
So, I mean, we've talked about so many things, and I know you and I love you, and I know that we could talk about more things. And as we're talking, I'm like, well, we're definitely bringing all the podcast equipment to Polly's Island for our mastermind.
We're literally going to have a room going.
Oh my God. I'm like, well, I don't know if there'll be a video for any of that.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be some wild